Andrew, how you doing?
I'm pretty good. And yourself?
I'm doing all right, man. How's your morning going thus far?
Not bad.
Yeah?
Not bad.
You know, you and I have a little something in common in that I actually play with Jonathan Richman. I play drums on half the last album and
Oh,
am
really?
contributing on the newest record as well. I'm kind of his guy up here in Northern California. We don't tour together like with Tommy, but I know he
Right.
was just down with you, and so I've kind of been in.
Yeah.
I've been hearing so much about you lately, and I've been a fan for a long time anyway. That it's funny how things circle around, and now we're on the phone together.
Yeah. No, it's been a really cool new friendship found there with Jonathan.
Yeah, you know,
He's,
it's an interesting and slightly unlikely pairing, but again, I think it actually makes a lot of sense considering you have a diverse musical background, and Jonathan obviously continues to diversify. What was your first impression of working with Jonathan?
well, we had a couple phone conversations where I was just like, wow, this guy is just totally devoted to art of
Mm-hmm.
of any kind, really, film um, and just a enthusiasm uh,
Right.
that is rare for someone of any age, really.
Right.
And then when you know, I think we share a similar approach to performing too, with a sort of value exuberance over precision, perhaps, or
Right.
you know, like enjoy the responding to the
Right.
present and your environment.
Now I watched your performance together in your great room recording, and I see you're able to. You know, I know you're classically trained, and when you're kind of going off the cuff like that, do you consciously have to tell your classically trained mind to like kind of back off when you're improvising, or where's that kind of separate for you?
I I never let that classical mindset um, get a foothold, even
Mm-hmm.
though I just learned classical music by sheer exposure. I was not a particularly model student,
Okay.
so I was always coming from the intuitive approach, um, that rather than the I barely learned to read music, and once I did, I didn't need to because my ear could learn it faster than I could sight read it.
Okay.
Um, so I mean, early when I came right out of music school, maybe there were some moments where I had to break down a couple of things. But I was playing in bands from 18, 19, playing in
Right.
punk bands and ska bands, and I'd already and I was playing Irish music where you have to kind of break up the phrase and be your own drummer
Right.
with your bow. So
Right.
it was never such a stretch for me, really.
Okay. The new record is beautiful, by the way, and
Thanks.
I'm fascinated by the choosing the L.A. River of all things because it is, it's something that I've always associated, the Hyperion Bridge with kind of this gross, environmental disaster looking thing, and now you set this beautiful score to it. What drew you to kind of striking that juxtaposition?
Well, I thought that was interesting, but it was somewhat a matter of proximity and convenience.
Mm-hmm.
I ride my bike down there a lot, and I was noticing that the river has actually gotten a lot nicer and a lot cleaner, and there's tons of unusual birds down there,
Oh,
and it's not the post-apocalyptic nightmare that it I think it's known to be.
Yeah, it's not the Terminator 2 motorcycle scene.
No, it still has a faint smell of ammonia, but other
Right.
than that, the water's actually pretty clean. There's
Okay.
fish in there, and
Right.
and then there's all these wetlands they put in there.
Okay.
But it is a very odd mix of urban and imposed
Right. Right.
natural environment. But it's really, what was interesting to me is the architecture of those bridges. There's two bridges at randomly slightly different angles right next to each other,
Mm-hmm.
from the teens, 20s, that have these arches, these ellipses that are created that are somewhat random, and the randomness of nature tends to be good for acoustic.
Mm-hmm.
Symmetry, two hard flat walls opposite each other just creates this unnatural kind of springy sound.
Right.
But there's these soaring arches above you, and I'm standing ankle deep in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And even the sound of traffic becomes somewhat serene.
I was going to say you must have wound up with a glut of interesting field recordings almost from this process that aren't on the record. I would imagine.
Yeah, there's lots of. I just try everything to see what kind of feedback I get off the surrounding surfaces, and and that's the idea. Is I try to come in as a blank slate. At that moment, I came in to do that recording. I was right in the midst of getting ready to record Are You Serious? So I had all these melodies in my head from that record.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll hear little hints of them in there. So, but the idea was to come in without an idea and then build the compositions based on what notes give me the most feedback.
Right.
As if you're deprived of your senses, and then you have to kind of piece it together in your brain based on what's bouncing off the walls.
What did you notice that was similar or different from the Canyon experience, just as kind of a cerebral atmosphere? I mean, what did you take away from those two different recording experiences?
Well, there's all sorts of unconscious inferences going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I can probably piece it together, like just acoustically, like the canyon was more or less silent, except for the rushing of water slightly.
Mm-hmm.
And the walls were incredibly high and sort of leaning in, almost cathedral-like. And so I had to, the first thing I found out which note gave me the most, and that was C sharp. So I kind of kept playing that note and letting it ring. And that became the basis of a lot of the tonal center of a lot of the recordings. But
okay.
In the LA River, there's a lot of white noise.
Right.
So I'm kind of fighting to find what frequencies are still giving me information or getting around that white noise from the traffic, from the water.
Right.
And in all these ones, it's really the real challenge is to stop playing for a minute and let the notes ring out until they're done, and that determines phrasing in the sense of the temporal sense. And but I'm not really thinking so technically, and it's only in retrospect that I'm doing an analysis of it. But
yeah, I mean, your music to me has always had the quality of lending itself to the outdoors, if you will, the world of nature. Has that always been a part of your life in terms of your day-to-day experience? You observe nature; it's part of who you are.
You might be able to say that. Where I really made the connection between my music and nature was when I moved out to Western Illinois to live fix up this barn and live out there and make music out there for a few years. And it was getting out from under the urban canopy of buildings and trees in Chicago, was, and being able to see the horizon and being able to see a storm come through the valley and then pass over you and then move on. And I'd be making these loops there and looking out the window and seeing a tree being blown in the wind and noticing that not only can the environment affect what I decide to play, but I can affect through the music the way the environment looks to me.
Right.
So there's a kind of a two-way street that I discovered that you find that you may experience in some rare moments of film music that can do that, can kind of make time slow down.
Right.
And I was kind of interested in that. How can I also, how can I change my sense, the way I perceive time through music?
Was your Western Illinois, was that the weather systems era when you moved out there?
Yeah, that was like 2003 to 2006. So.
Right, yeah, because that is still my favorite Andrew Bird record. And I, sonically, and the way your compositions are in this latest piece, there's a lot of similarities to me in terms of what's going on. And maybe it's not a coincidence that your experience with nature at the time is reflecting in what you're doing now, because it seems like they're related.
Yeah, I mean, I have a tremendous amount of trouble in the studio trying to capture my voice, especially my voice, but also playing, but mostly singing. If I'm in a small room with headphones on, it's over. I can't do it. And maybe that's what drove me outside.
Right.
Because every time and the same thing happens when you're playing a festival and you can see miles away. You want to, whether you're in a theater and you're trying to see how the sound bounces off the back wall or hits people in every different seat. When you're playing, I discovered playing these festivals that your voice shoots up an octave and you're trying to fill the vast negative space out there with your sound, and it pulls all this primal stuff out of you. And
right.
That's also kind of what drove me to try the Echolocations, is that, and just when I played and started playing in this barn with these high vaulted ceilings, a sense of optimism. I just played differently.
Right.
I sing differently.
Right.
And I thought, well, let's just take the roof off and see what happens.
Yeah, it's funny because the first time I saw you live was at the Wanderlust Festival in Squaw Valley, and you apparently, as you said on the mic, all of your gear had been lost in the flight. Do you remember this?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so it was just you up there with your violin, and you borrowed some stuff, and it was like a wizard kind of performance because it just took over the valley and it lent itself so well. I'm not surprised that these kind of field recordings that you're going with Echolocations work so well. It seems to just fit you very appropriately in my mind.
Yeah, it's kind of and the struggle to recreate that for an audience live is always an infinite challenge, because you feel the attention spans of your audience. You're connected with your audience, but you want to take them somewhere, but you don't want to just be totally self-indulgent at the same time. So it's this push and pull to give yourself that kind of license to have all this space and
right, and
bring people to that place. It's really hard. Everyone's only spending their whole day looking a couple feet in front of them.
Right. And I was also curious if, say, Are You Serious has it has a pop streak to it, and where the Echolocations, there's no pop at all really. Is it kind of a counterbalance for you to record something more like Are You Serious and then do an Echolocations? It kind of evens out where your songwriting goes. I mean, how's that relationship for you?
Yeah, it's a constant challenge to the restraint that's required to write because everything's in service of the song when you're making those records. Like, Are You Serious?
Mm-hmm.
And should there? Yeah, I could cut loose and play a violin solo on Capsize, but
mm-hmm.
maybe I shouldn't. And you make these decisions, and they're usually good decisions. For the song, just let it be. Sometimes incredibly simple. But I find that infinitely challenging trying to write those 3.5-minute songs.
Right.
That get everybody singing.
Right.
Along,
Yeah.
But then, there's a lot of stuff ends up on the cutting room floor, and there's a lot of restraint that you don't want to feel repressive. So I invent these projects in between those pop records,
mm-hmm.
and sometimes almost every time I learn something. Well, Weather Systems was one of those. It wasn't intended to be a commercial release, really.
Right. Okay.
And I find when I'm in that mode of just learning and experimenting, I do some of my best work.
Right.
But if I was always in that mode, I don't know if it would be as potent or would work. It's one succeeds because it's the counterbalance to the other.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Weather Systems is interesting in that regard because it's not a traditional pop record by any sense, and I don't consider it pop per se, but it has these hooks that somehow, you've been able to create your own brand of pop music in a way, to me, that other people don't really do.
Yeah, I like playing with Jonathan. Coming back to that is like I find I meet people like Jonathan over the years, and we're on very different, almost opposite trajectories.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I came from like a more complex studied past, and I've been continually discovering the virtues of straightforward and simplicity, and then a lot of early punk rock people have this thirst for art, so they come from playing 2 or 3 chords and just barely playing their instruments to, over the years, becoming aficionados of
mm-hmm.
of higher forms of art, and it's interesting when we meet at these points on our path.
Yeah, unlikely partners, but it works. And I know you're really busy with phoners and stuff today, so I'll let you go. But Jonathan and I and Nicole, his wife, will be coming down for the show at the Mondavi Center.
Yeah, I heard that.
So we're really looking forward to it, man. So can't wait to see you again, and I look forward to the show, man. Thanks a lot for talking today.
Oh, yeah. Good talking to you, man.
All right.
See you soon.
Take it easy, Andrew.
All right.